Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan. It is Friday, October 19th. I am Nurbek Savitakhunov. 17-year-old Gabit Kurmankulov, the only survivor of a special operation in Aktobe, is being tried for murder of a police officer in June. He's charged on 8 counts of the criminal code, including organizing a terrorist group and extremist propaganda. The case is reviewed behind closed doors at a specialized inter-regional criminal court of Aktobe region.
It is hard to tell how it will end, but courts usually give long prison terms in such cases. Similar trials are often held behind closed doors because they are seen as linked with national security. But most likely there were some violations during the investigation, so they don't want to make it public. 29-year-old policeman Timirbek Shaksilykbayev was murdered on June 21, 2012 in Aktobe. The police closed in on the suspects 2 days later, but 2 of them died in the ensuing shootout, with the third one hospitalized with serious wounds. The prosecutor's office reported that the criminals rejected the demand to surrender.
Soldiers of Caliphate terrorist group leader Mozzedin Garsalau was murdered in Pakistan, reports the intelligence group website. The jihadist trained newcomers to conduct terrorist acts. Among his followers were citizens of Kazakhstan.
Terrorist organization Caliphate soldiers came into spotlight in the summer of 2011 and then appealed to the government in October, demanding to revoke the adopted law on religion. 2 terrorist attacks followed in Atara, with Caliphate soldiers claiming responsibility for both. The General Prosecutor's Office established later that the organization was created by Rinat Habidullah, Arinbasir Munatov and Damir Znaliyev, all Kazakhstan citizens who were ostensibly preparing to bring jihad to the country. Later the terrorist organization was outlawed in Kazakhstan, but experts still doubt the actual existence of the group. Take Bin Laden, for instance. He was killed and a new man replaced him as the head of the organization. This is a common occurrence, and the cell still exists, with all the threats remaining tangible. It should all have been done through operations, and preventive measures should have been applied to track envoys in their activity, establishing their links and preventing them from recruiting people into the organization.
Vladislav Chelach, suspected of murdering his fellow soldiers at the Yatkan-Kergan outpost, is under constant video surveillance after an unsuccessful suicide attempt, reported Minister of the Interior Kalmukhanbek Kasimov after a plenary session of the Senate.
Private Chelach attempted a suicide last week, as per the record in the Book of Account statements run by the Almaty Regional Internal Affairs Department. The detention center personnel managed to prevent the suicide and later invited Chelach's family for a visit. Nevertheless, the solitary confinement requested by Chelach's mother for her son was denied, and surveillance cameras were installed in the cell instead. Of course, we have taken steps to tighten security. We've established thorough monitoring. Why do you need such details? Any more questions? Vasily Rezvan, the public defender of Vladislav Chelach, believes it's simply impossible to step up the surveillance. Several cameras are already mounted above the border guard's bed, while his cellmates are decoys to keep an eye on the prisoner and provoke him to say or do something. The attorney says that under such circumstances, the soldier could have been better off in a separate cell, but the prosecutor's office won't let that happen. Given that he reports about being constantly threatened to face humiliations by his cellmates, the authorities could have satisfied the request for better detention conditions, and there is a clear provision for that in the law. Taking into account all circumstances and the fact that the prosecution opposes arrangement of such detention conditions, it shows that it is not in their interest to do so.
Meanwhile, investigations continue of an incident at the Kazakh-Russian border. As reported by the Attorney General's office, acting head of the Border Control Department Nurjan Muratov was detained for the brawl at the Urlyutabe outpost.
The criminal case against the acting chief of Urlyutabe border post of the NSC Border Service, 2nd Lieutenant Muratov, was instigated on charges of resisting the authorities. At the beginning of this week, around 30 Border Patrol servicemen fought back financial police officer who attempted to detain one of their colleagues. At the moment, he attempted to accept a bribe. The servicemen, armed with batons, attacked policemen and took away the evidence collected as well as their protocols. Now the military prosecutors are interrogating people involved in the accident at the border. One of the instigators is the acting chief of the border post, who has been transferred to the position only a month ago. According to the information provided by the supervisory body, he replaced the chief officer, who is now on leave.
Yet another scuffle between regional Kozolorda criminal groups ended in a shootout. According to preliminary reports, a shelled Hyundai license plate 564 was sent to the traffic police parking lot.
The scene with smashed windows, blood-stained interior, wrecked bumper and bullets stuck in the doors implied doom for the 3 passengers, but only one of them, Chingiz Uksikbayev, a well-known athlete in the region, was taken to the city hospital at 4:30 a.m. with a gunshot wound to the head. The police is now investigating the causes of the assault. The judo wrestler flatly refused to cooperate with law enforcement, as well as further treatment in the clinic. He had every reason to be admitted for treatment, but he refused and left after signing a notice. We can't make him stay. The X-ray examination revealed a minor splinter bullet wound, but the bone is intact. The removal is a routine procedure. Indeed, we don't have any proper information. They refuse to talk. They considered it disgraceful to write a statement. Therefore, we refrain from making comments.
In Kazakhstan, police buried a young woman at a cemetery for unidentified bodies without having established who she was. Her relatives are now demanding almost $50,000 for moral damages and negligence. First hearing in the case was held on Thursday.
Going through all this, especially the exhumation, places a lot of pressure on me. I don't know how do I manage to pull through with all these non-committal replies and excuses. The way I get treated makes me want to yell at people asking to show some compassion. In April of 2012, Veronika Makhmetova was found dead in the Karaganda garage, poisoned by unidentified substance. The woman was a drug addict with a record. Despite clear instructions, the police staff failed to inform Makhmetov's family of their daughter's death and later buried the body as unclaimed. Veronika's family asked the court to force the police to compensate them for moral damages. However, on Thursday, the DIA representative asked the court to drop the case altogether. I believe this matter is not subject to review in the civil trial because the existing means of compensation for harm caused by the prosecution officials is different. Whether the court grants the request of the police will be known in a few days, yet on Thursday the hearing was suspended to consider the motion of the plaintiff. The Makhmetov's family still insists on finding the DIA officers because none of them even apologized for the mistake.
Handing out acquittals is fraught with consequences for Kazakhstan's judges. Judge Aliya Zhumasheva told the media at Thursday's press conference of the National Anti-Corruption Committee that she's being wrongfully dismissed.
The judge of Katyr District Court in the Pavlodar region reported that she has been facing persecution supposedly for acquitting defendants too often. Right after Zhumasheva released 2 defendants due to the lack of evidence, the prosecutor's office launched an audit of her work. The pressure was also coming from her direct supervisor, as well as the chairman of the Judicial Appeals Board. On Thursday, Zhumasheva made a public statement saying that Kazakhstan judges aren't independent and those who seek to rule in accordance with their conscience are simply dismissed from the office. I was told that since it was a minor loss, I'll manage to find a job because I'm still young. That's what they told me. The most important is that I'm still healthy and young. But the panel of judges will close all doors in all institutions for me. That means that with such record, dismissed by the decision of the panel of judges, I won't be able to work as an attorney, prosecutor, or even notary.
Kazakhstan's public activists demand to punish author of the article Memories, Hong Bao, in accordance with law. They claim it is unauthentic and offensive. Outraged activists addressed an open letter to the Chinese government and embassy. More details next.
Kazakh politicians and social activists have demanded to bring Hong Bao, Chinese author of memoirs, to administrative and criminal responsibility. They expressed their outrage in an open appeal posted on several online resources. Here are the lines that offended social activists. The hospitality of Kazakh people is generous to an extent when highly honorable guest is not only given meat, but also a single daughter for the night. At the same time, this custom was depicted by the author as a tested personal adventure. 52 people, including human rights activist Galym Agilov, have already signed the appeal to the Chinese government and the embassy. Galym Agilov said such unflattering remarks would always appear unless they were punished. There's no point in appealing to bring the Chinese author to criminal responsibility, like in the story with Burat, who will just get into the same mess. Thus, we'd better not pay attention to such things. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is already aware of the offensive publication. The official representative Ilyas Amarov said the statement has been posted in the personal blog of director Hong Bao after his visit to Kazakhstan. Indeed, the described event did occur, but was misinterpreted. Apparently, it is the tradition of nomadic people to share one room for a night over. The Chinese guest was just offered to share a bed. Everybody was sleeping in one room, including the head of the family, his wife, and their daughter. Thus, the issue is not worth to be given a status of an international scandal. It should be noted that after the open appeal of Kazakh citizens, Chinese memories were removed from the site sina.com.cn.
President Nazarbayev enters the top 10 list of most influential Muslim political leaders. Poll results conducted in 40 countries on the eve of the Istanbul Global Forum show that the national leader placed 6 among others.
Only 15 Muslim politicians made the list of the most influential Muslim leaders. Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan is placed first, followed by Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad and the ruling Emir of the State of Qatar Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani. Both the newly elected President of Egypt Mohamed Morsi and Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad are also ahead of Nursultan Nazarbayev. Other leaders on the list include the King of Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and King of Jordan, as well as the President of Chechnya.
Moving on, former ambassador of Kazakhstan to Austria and son-in-law of the national leader Rahat Aliyev confirmed to our reporters that President Nazarbayev holds a Turkish passport. Commenting on the latest announcements made by the president regarding closer relations with the Turkish Republic made earlier in Istanbul, Aliyev also revealed why Nazarbayev is going on a European tour. On October 22nd, the national leader is flying to Austria and afterwards to the Czech Republic. Aside from political affairs, the head of state is planning to evaluate the hotels opened for him in these countries, says Aliyev. In Vienna, it is the Ritz-Carlton that was bought by his advisor Bolat Utimuratov this summer. In the Czech Republic, it is a hotel in Karlovy Vary, jointly owned by Timur Kulibayev, where the president is expected to stay this time. As for the Turkish passport, Aliyev explained why the president may need it.
В 1993 году Нурсултан Абишевич мне сам лично показывал турецкий паспорт, выписанный на Назарбаева Нурсултана Абишевича.
In 1993, Nazarbayev personally showed me his Turkish passport. It was given to him by Turkey's late president Turgut Özal during his official visit. Nazarbayev shared with me that a Turkish passport might come handy in case of emergency. He was especially concerned after the Soviet coup of 1991, when he had to make a decision of whether to join the emerging democratic leader Yeltsin or the State Committee on the State of Emergency.
Когда ему нужно было принимать решение или примкнуть к ГКЧП, или к тройке славянских государств во главе с Ельциным.
In other news, Senator Gani Kasimov expressed concerns over Kazakhstan's national interest in the Joint Board of Customs Services on Thursday. An agreement was sent for ratification to the Senate, leading the chief patriot of Kazakhstan to ask why the supranational agencies of the Customs Union are controlled by Moscow.
I don't understand why should we replace that with an entire organization which will also assume our national duties. We should not destroy the Council of Customs Service heads and instead develop it further. Gani Kasimov especially didn't like the fact that the document on the establishment of Customs Board was drafted only in Russian. The MP accused his colleagues of disrespecting the constitution and even said that Kazakhstan is becoming a Russian colony. Nevertheless, the rest of parliamentarians almost unanimously approved the draft, while MP Kairat Mami summed up the discussion saying that all objections had to be voiced when the draft was under review. According to the papers in my hand, this issue was addressed during committee hearings and no objections were made then. Perhaps Mr. Kasimov failed to participate in the committee hearings, but that's a different matter altogether.
Chairman of the Committee for Technical Regulation and Metrology of the Ministry of Industry and New Technologies announced at a briefing that he wants to toughen penalties for dishonest manufacturers, including holding them criminally liable.
The inspection of Astana supermarkets revealed subpar quality food items and toys. Over 12,000 shipments of different items lacking proper certificates of compliance were found. Cases of mislabeling products are widespread, and according to the inspectors, some goods were dangerous for the health due to heavy metals residue inside. We found out about the trade of food items containing dangerous substances. For instance, coffee and sugar produced in Russia and fried sunflower seeds made in Turkey have high level of cadmium, but are freely sold in major supermarkets chain Rahmet in Astana.
70% of Kazakhstanis take medication without a prescription, says the Health Ministry. At a press conference in Astana, ministry officials expressed their discontent and announced plans to tighten the procedure of issuing medicine in pharmacies. Find out what you can and cannot purchase over the counter in the next story.
The Ministry of Healthcare representative suggests forcing the people of Kazakhstan to get doctor's prescription. During the Thursday briefing in Astana, they said that people prefer self-medication over visiting clinics due to lack of time. People shouldn't self-medicate themselves, especially using antibacterial drugs, because it leads to antibiotic resistance. Say the person feels a lot worse and goes through the surgery while being resistant to a particular antibiotic. It may have very unfortunate consequences. Marat Mohamedov is heading to the pharmacy with his wife. They receive part of the medicines for free with doctor's prescription while purchasing the rest without one. The retiree doesn't want to visit the doctor every time he's sick. However, he supports the idea of dispensing drugs strictly on prescription, which is suggested by the Ministry of Health on one condition: to make visits to doctors more affordable. Free clinics have big queues. It takes from 3 to 4 days a week to set an appointment with a therapist, while seeing a medical specialist requires 10 days. I had a heartache 2 years ago. I received a referral from my clinic to a cardiologic health center and spent 4 months undergoing medical examination. Kazakh Muslims Union also believes that healthcare is not available in the country. Moreover, they say that the quality of medical services is poor. That's exactly why the officials prefer to be treated abroad instead of Kazakhstan hospitals, they say. That caused the activist of UMK request the resignation of the Minister of Health, Salidat Kairbekova. Kazakh Muslims Union calls on Kazakh authorities to categorically prohibit state officials to have trips abroad for treatment. The conditions must be tough. Either you increase the national healthcare system to the international level or die in pain back home from severe diseases. However, the doctors themselves deny the charges. They assure the reporters during Thursday briefing that the Ministry of Health is doing everything to improve the quality of care. The citizens believe that by demanding to enforce drug prescriptions, the officials are lobbying for the private clinics, where consultations are usually not free, and the doctors of state clinics are difficult to visit because of the queues.
Residents of a multi-story building in Saran, Karaganda region are dissatisfied with repair works that were done, while local authorities claim that the house was completely restored. At the same time, local administration refuses to talk to residents and the media about the pressing issue, leaving people face-to-face with their problem.
After the renovation, everything is falling apart, while $266,000 were paid. Look at this. This is house number 67A at Jambal Street, located in just few steps from the city administration of Saran. But its location didn't affect the quality of the construction. The plastering is falling from the walls and the electric cables are all over the place. And here is what the basement and recently renovated house looks like. Trenches were meeting through the huge holes in the entrance. The roof was repaired poorly, according to the residents. All these happened after the major repairs that were done under the government program of modernizing the housing. The residents were not allowed to choose the contractor or look at the budget, so nobody knew who has to pay for the repairs to the government. Deputy Mayor of the city, Kozhikov, also supported the residents and told us at the meeting that the city won't be able to use all of the $266,000 and suggested that only half is used, and we agreed. Eventually we managed to get the whole amount and made the estimated budget, but the final budget was made without our participation. This program is aimed only at the repairs of the common spaces, attics, basements and entrances, but they also imposed changes of the windows and balconies on the residents, and most of them agreed. However, later they discovered that the quality of installation of the windows was low, and as a result the apartments are cold, and in some places there were even fungi, and the authorities are derelict. I haven't seen any action of the city administration. They are totally indifferent to our house and told us to solve our problems by our own means. At the same time, under the same program, the 128-apartment building was repaired in Karaganda. This house is twice as big, and only $146,000 were spent, which is twice less than the amount spent on the repairs of the infamous house in Saran. The residents of the latter wrote a complaint to the prosecutor's office, which forwarded to the financial police for investigation.
It gets worse from here. Experts from the World Health Organization warn that the annual increase of temperatures and extreme weather conditions that are common in Kazakhstan might seriously affect not only the health of the population, but also worsen the country's economic situation in the future.
Heavy rains, floods and landslides are expected to increase dramatically in a number of Central Asian countries. The abnormal heat wave observed in Kazakhstan in recent years has also contributed to the spread of infections, concluded World Health Organization specialists after studying the local climate for 4 years. Nevertheless, international researchers say there is no reason to worry at least until 2050. If healthcare system and climate change signals are not adjusted by then, unpredictable weather conditions may affect the country's economy, dramatically dropping crop production capacities. Everything that is happening in the environment in one way or another affects people's health in our country. The main goal of the project was to undertake research, raise people's awareness of its results, and based on that, develop measures to prepare the population for the climate change.
Campaigns in memory of the killed Zhanaozian resident Alexander Bazhenko were held across Kazakhstan and abroad. Armed with candles and posters, activists entered the streets of Geneva, Warsaw, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco. To recap, public activists are planning to control the course of the investigation over the murder of the 20-year-old young man who said that he was tortured to give testimonies in the case of 37 oil workers.
Not only people in Kazakhstan gathered to honor the memory of Alexander Bazhenko, a witness of Zhanaozian case who was murdered, but people in Washington, D.C., San Francisco and Geneva. It is possible that nobody would have known, but he was the only witness of prosecution who had enough courage. Many believe that it was a contract killing. I don't know who killed him, but the fact that he's not with us anymore and his brave deed, a confession that he falsely testified, deserves of respect. Only truly strong person could have done it. He couldn't live with it, so he told the truth. Sudden death of Alexander Bazhenko shocked many, and according to official theory, he was beaten to death because of the dispute in the store. Two suspects already admitted their guilt. Residents of Uralsk do not support such speedy course of events. Recently, they lighted the candles in the memory of Bazhenko and demanded a thorough investigation into his murder. Lukman Akhmedyarov, one of the most prominent residents of Uralsk and a journalist, also came out to honor the memory of Alexander Bazhenko in Washington, D.C. In the end of the past week, he was awarded for a brave and truthful coverage of events. He came to the White House with a poster "Obama do not support Nazarbayev," and Bakhajan Tarigozhina stood next to him with a photo of Alexander Bazhenko. It is an expensive and bitter truth that we couldn't save this guy and now he's gone. It will serve a good start for the active civil part of the society and opposition to be more responsible for those people who seek compromise with us and want to tell us something. Even those who left Kazakhstan many years ago couldn't stay silent about the event. Single-man protest was held by artist Roshan Tolganbayeva in Geneva. She held a poster with a short description of the situation in Kazakhstan. Alexander was brutally murdered for his honesty and bravery. I'm very disappointed. He will always be in my thoughts. I don't want my brothers and sisters to be brutally killed and tortured in my home country. This footage is from San Francisco, where students from Kazakhstan and those stayed there to live also went out to participate in the protest. Now Alexander Bazhenko's name became a new symbol of protest for Kazakhstan citizens. His death could have been an accident, but a few believe in this theory after what happened in the country in the last few months, and indifferent people joined their efforts to find out the true cause of his death.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching and see you tomorrow.